10 years. That's about how long I've been coding. And in this video, we are going to talk about the skills, the salary. We're going to leave no stone unturned so that you know exactly what to expect if you are getting into this industry. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Jake. I'm an ex-Amazon engineer, and I'm making these videos for you to share exactly what did work, what didn't work, and what I'm actively doing to earn over $100,000 a year as a remote front-end developer. Okay, now I run frontendfuture.com. This is the fastest way to break into this industry if you're looking to break in, all right? So if that's you and you're ready to get started today, go ahead and go to frontendfuture.com. I've included a link down below in the description as well. And there is a free training that you can go ahead and take advantage of. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so today we are going to talk about the foundations. We're going to talk about the internship and experience and job progression. All right, what skills actually matter? What skills did I improve over time to work on improving my salary? And then what was the reality of full-time work? What does it look like to be a software engineer? What does it look like to progress in your career? What do you need? What kind of money are you going to make? Things like that. As well as we are going to talk about salaries. I know you want to know about hard numbers. What can you actually earn? Where can you earn it? So on and so forth. We are going to talk about that today. Okay, so let's jump into foundations here. All right, to kind of give you a bit of background about myself. I never knew I wanted to be a software engineer. As a kid, I didn't even know what coding was. Okay, and you know, in college, I always kind of felt behind because there were so many kids that had, you know, studied coding as a kid. Maybe their parents were engineers and they were just exposed to this stuff way sooner than I was. And I always felt a little behind the eight ball. So I guess as a first point, it's like, if that's you and you feel like you're just a little behind and why does everybody know this stuff? Just know that that's totally natural. For years and years and years, I personally felt very, very behind. With that being said, my first introduction to coding, and not hard coding, but just coding, was in high school. And this high school, it was a class in my high school offered, I think it was called web development. And all we really covered in that class was some basic HTML and CSS. Now, by the end of the class, I was no expert. I certainly was not a front-end engineer, but this was kind of my first exposure to coding and what was possible and so on and so forth. And pretty early on, I knew that I was decent at this, at least compared to my peers. You know, everything kind of felt easy and it was very natural. But at this time, I had no idea I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't even know that was a career, if I'm being completely honest. In high school, all I really cared about was I cared about baseball and I cared about girls and getting good grades. And that, you know, that's pretty much it. Like, I wasn't thinking about career. I wasn't thinking about engineer. I certainly wasn't studying or trying super hard at this class. I just wanted to get a good grade, right? But that was my first introduction there. And to be quite honest, I forgot about this coding thing for a couple years. As I said, this was not, hey, look, I'm going to be an engineer. Hey, look, I'm going to be a software engineer, whatever. This was like, hey, I need this to graduate, so I'm going to take this class. Now, that all changed when I got to college. Now, when I got to college, I did not go in as a computer science major. I didn't even know what I wanted to study until my second semester of college. I couldn't make my mind up, right? I talked to every engineer in the world. I talked to, you know, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, aeronautical, things like that, like all these different options. And I really struggled to make up my mind. The one thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to make a lot of money one day, but I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't really know anybody studying computer science. So here I am, you know, 18-year-old kid, wide-eyed, you know, just trying to figure things out. But funny enough, I actually made this decision. I woke up one morning, hungover in my bed, and, you know, I was like, screw it. You know, I'll just choose computer science. I hadn't even taken a class in it. I had pretty much completely forgotten about the class I took in high school at this point, and I certainly lost the skills, but at this time, I was just like, you know what, screw it. This sounds interesting, and I'll just commit to it. I know they pay pretty well, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what my decision looked like. And when I actually went to study coding, computer science in college, I learned a few things, right? And only a couple of the classes that I took actually really mattered, okay? And the vast majority of things that I learned just were not that useful, or truly are not that useful in the real world in terms of software engineering specifically. Now, if you go into PhD or things like that, okay, maybe they're useful, but directly for coding, web applications, or the software engineering that you'll likely be doing if you break into this industry or you're trying to level up, just not super relevant. So the coursework that did kind of matter was I took a Python 101. This taught me kind of the basics of conditionals, for loops, file input, outputs, efficiency, things like that, where these skills, these patterns, they kind of transmute across different coding languages, right? So if you can learn the fundamentals in any language, they kind of start to repeat themselves across different languages. And a side note on that, if you're struggling or you don't know what language to start with, just pick one. The one I recommend is JavaScript, but if you can just master the one, if you can start to learn these patterns and master one language, right? Learning a new language, it becomes a lot easier over time, and that's what you'll realize. So if you're worried about picking the right one or whatever, like, don't worry about it too much. Pick one. I recommend JavaScript, not Python. Learn it, and then, your ability to pick up any new language is going to be fine after that, all right? Beyond that, learn some data structures, super helpful. Heaps, maps, arrays, trees, graphs, things like that. Just kind of necessary, not the most important. Like, you definitely don't need super deep data structure knowledge to actually do the engineering job, but it becomes helpful the more complex work you work on, and you're going to have a little bit of data structure knowledge to pass your technical interviews, okay? The next couple courses, object-oriented programming, this is pretty straightforward. And then algorithms, right? Algorithms, not too crazy important for real world work, but you're probably going to need them to pass these interviews. And if you're watching this and maybe you're 30, maybe you're 40 years old and you haven't yet gone to college and you're maybe wondering if it's too late, what I will say here is this coursework, this can all be learned online for free. Basically, all the information's out there. That's the amazing thing about coding, is like all the information is actually out there. You don't have to go back to school for it, right? You don't have to go to college. You don't have to go back to school, but you do need to sift through the right information, right? And if you're wondering like where to go, where do I actually figure out what's the right information and wrong information, I recommend you just go to frontendfuture.com. There's a link down below in the description. I've laid out everything that you need to learn so that you can take the most streamlined path into this industry. Now, continuing on here, again, in high school and college, I realized I was decent at this, but I didn't have any real world experience. And I was kind of faced with this issue of like, how do I actually go and get a job? Like, where do I go from here? I'm starting to learn these things, but how am I going to be valuable? What does this look like? Okay. And that's where the issue of kind of college came in for me. Was I had all this classroom theory, but I just didn't have that much experience programming. Like Python 101, we coded a little bit, but these other classes, we really just didn't code that much, right? And so I had this kind of knowledge, but I was struggling to bridge the gap in terms of how do I actually be a software engineer? And so that's what I'm going to talk about here in a moment. So what did that actually look like for me? All right. So before I went full-time with this, I was in school, I was in college, right? So I didn't really have the time to work full-time. I didn't have the time, to kind of study this stuff full-time. So what my job progression looked like was this, all right? So I landed my first internship, and at this internship, I was making about $15 an hour, okay? And I actually got pretty lucky because I had a connection at this place, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely lost. I was completely clueless. I wasn't on a dev team. I didn't know what I was doing. I remember the person kind of assigning me work was like, oh, just go and use that API to solve this problem. And, we little 18, 19, 20-year-old me, can't remember how old I was at the time, I didn't even know what an API was, which, if you're a software engineer, if you're studying computer science, it's like, this is just something you should know. And maybe that can give you a little bit of confidence, a little bit of reassurance in that, when you first get started, yes, you'll hear people online like, oh, it's so competitive and the job market's so bad and yada, yada, yada. I think this just gives testament to it's landing your first job, getting your first job, becoming a software engineer. Yes, you need the technical skills, but you also need some soft skills, right? And those soft skills can sometimes outweigh the technical skills just for breaking into this industry, right? If you want to level up and you want to obviously go to the highest rungs that you can, you're going to have to get good. There's no way around that. And that just takes time. But to break into this industry, it just takes a little bit of savviness, all right? So here I am, like very mediocre skills, if not that great of skills, landed my first internship. Now, granted, $15 an hour is not super glamorous, okay? What does that work out to? It works out to about $30,000 a year if we're considering full-time at 2,000 hours working a year. So it was money, and I was thrilled to be making this much money. And at that age, it felt like I was making the world, right? That was more money than I had ever seen and or made in my life, okay? So at this job, I was just doing some basic Python scripting. But what was amazing about this was after that internship, those skills, those fundamentals, learning how to talk to, the business people around you, learning how to interview, things like that, that went and landed me my second internship. Okay. And at this second internship, I started earning $32 an hour. And at the actual internship, like the skills I was working on, I was prototyping a crypto vending machine. Okay. So I was using React. I was using, I believe, like Azure's computer vision to kind of scan items in. So like, for example, this water bottle, you can scan in this water bottle via your computer camera, and then it would actually go and run a crypto transaction. So we had built off the Ropsten, I believe, testnet on Ethereum, and it was pretty cool, right? So, you use your camera, scan an item, and it would actually charge your crypto wallet or what have you. Now, this internship was at a bank, and $32 an hour. I mean, that was more money than I had ever seen before. So if you run the numbers, right, 32 times 2,000 working hours in a year, that's $64K. And I know a lot of people watching this video, you're not yet necessarily earning $64,000 a year, and this could be a huge step up for you. And so I put this here to say, this was 3 months experience. This first internship was 3 months of experience. That led me into that second internship where all of a sudden I doubled my salary and I was working on cool, interesting work, earning $32 an hour or 64 grand a year. Okay, 3 months of experience, double the salary. And so this second internship lasted about 5 months, and that snowballed into the next internship. This is where I worked for Amazon, okay? And so at this Amazon internship, I doubled my salary up to $60+ an hour. Okay, so if you run the actual yearly salary on this is equivalent to basically 120 grand and beyond. So 120 grand right there. And at this internship, this is when I really felt dumb for the first time. I really felt like an imposter where, I would sit in meetings with these senior engineers and engineers that have been doing this for years and years and years, and I just couldn't keep up with the discussions they were having, right? They were talking about microservice architectures. They were talking about system design. They were talking about database trade-offs, things like that. And, as a 21-year-old kid, I just didn't know what they were talking about yet. I didn't have the knowledge yet. But that's not to say I can't, you can't develop the knowledge and it comes over time, right? But at this internship, I was writing predominantly Python backend code, okay? So I had stood up my entire, I guess, kind of microservice as an internal tool. So I was dealing with API Gateway, I had a Lambda, I had DynamoDB, I had access control, so IAM, I had KMS, which was like key management storage, I believe. And so I touched several things here, and that's when my skills and confidence really started to develop. Like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I'm pretty good at this. And the thing about Amazon was, I always felt kind of behind the gun, like I was always behind, I wasn't doing enough, so on and so forth. But I learned really valuable skills, and this really built my confidence, especially when they extended a return offer to go join them full time, right? And that return offer was it was for about 153 grand. Okay, so mind you here, first internship, this was 3 months. 3 months right here, 5 months right here, 3 months right here. So if you add that up, 3 plus 5 plus 3, that is 11 months of experience, and they had extended a return offer for basically $153,000. Okay, so what other industry can you get into where if you get a few internships and you have about a year of experience, can you go and land a job like this? I mean, honestly, what industry can you do this in? I don't know of many. And so that's part of the reason I think coding and I think engineering is such a valuable field or such an amazing opportunity you can get in, that you can earn this kind of money, these kind of salaries, even in a remote role. Now, granted, a lot of roles are in person, but a lot of roles are actually remote where you can go and earn that kind of money. Okay. Now, all this being said, I think the main point I want to drive home with this real world experience was a lot of the work is hands-on coding, design trade-offs, things like that. This experience is I did not learn it in school. I had to learn it out of school. I had to learn it on the job. And so, again, I want to reemphasize, if you were like, hey, I don't know if I missed the boat because I didn't study computer science in college, is it too late? To learn the actual skills needed to do the job, it is absolutely not too late. You can do this at any time. You don't need a college degree. Now, granted, having a college degree helps on your resume or whatever. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not a fool, right? I know how this works. But, to actually just learn the skills, you do not need a college degree. There is no secret information in college and a computer science curriculum that is going to make you necessarily better than somebody that learned on their own, okay? So let's go ahead and continue, and let's talk about full-time work, okay? So in my first full-time role, I did primarily front-end development, and that's why I harp on this so much on this channel, right? So when I was at Amazon and I was working on this back-end code, the reality was I had tremendous knowledge deficiencies. And to go and actually plug those gaps in terms of what I needed to know and to be competent and good at my job, I would have had to learn a lot. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing because it would have made me a lot more valuable at the time, but I would have had to learn a lot, and I just wasn't there yet. All I wanted to do was build my little startups and, go earn money as an engineer, okay? So in my first full-time role, I went into basically a full front-end development role, okay? And so that entailed several things, much of which was focused on conversion rate optimization, A/B testing, building new components, building new designs, new pages for the company I was at. And, in this role, I was earning a comfortable six figures. I wasn't earning crazy money. I wasn't earning, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I was earning six figures, and I was working remote, working on something that was interesting to me, working on something that was improving my skills, okay? And so that's why I recommend, anybody that's looking to get into this industry, it's like front-end development is absolutely the easiest way you can break into this industry, because to be quite honest, I think it requires the least amount of skills. The reason it's a great opportunity is a lot of devs just don't want to do front-end work because, one, it's not as challenging from a technical complexity side of things, right? So a lot of devs need that kind of mental stimulation, that challenge, and they don't necessarily want to work on it. And then two, it's kind of tedious at times, right? You're having to juggle design trade-offs, you're having to juggle performance, and then you're having to juggle like, hey, I need to make this work on mobile screens, I need to make this work on tablet screens, on desktop screens, and the goalposts are always changing. Designs are always changing, and it can be frustrating if you don't know what to expect as a front-end engineer. But for those reasons, it is the lowest barrier to entry for any software engineering role is front-end web dev, okay? And that's why I recommend it as, if you're trying to break into this industry as quickly as possible. Now, Since that first full-time role, I moved into my current role, which I'm doing more full stack work, right? I'm building end-to-end features. I'm making API changes. I'm making database changes. I'm making front-end changes, middleware changes, things like that. I'm kind of building across the entire array. And I see this as a great arc that kind of anyone can follow, right? Get your foot in the door via front ends, and then move to more complexity, move to a wider array of skills. And that way the reality is you're just going to be valuable to so many more businesses if you can do everything. If you can do everything out there, if you can make API changes, database changes, front-end changes, things like that, you're going to be valuable to a lot of companies. And this should give you reassurance in that I'm not saying you'll never get fired. I'm not saying like the job market can't be tough, but the reality is like you're going to be very valuable to the point where you should feel pretty secure in your job and pretty secure in the fact that you can go and find a job elsewhere should, maybe you lose your job or something, right? So that's what I do. I'm in my current role working on full stack end-to-end features. And what that actually looks like, a lot of my work is designers will give me a design. I'll build the front end. I'll go and hydrate data with the back end. So making, database, making API changes to go and work with real live data. And so I'll kind of own features across the entire stack. Okay. And one call out I want to make here is what I've experienced in working full time. What matters often, or what I've seen matter, is that communication skills can take you a long way. Tech skills matter. You need to be good, but being able to communicate the impact that you're making, not only to your team, but if you're looking to change companies, to other teams, to other hiring managers, to other C-suite people, that's going to take you a long way, and that's going to be what helps you justify those higher salaries, right? If you want to go and earn six figures, if you want to go and earn 200K, 300K, things like that, this isn't a lottery, or this isn't a charity, right? you need to be able to justify why these companies can pay you so much. And a great way to do that is by tying your engineering actions directly to business outcomes, right? So, if you can save a business $200K a year, if you can save a business $500K a year, or even make them say $1 million a year, it's like, it makes sense why they would be willing to pay you these high engineering salaries. The reality is, if you're a great engineer, you are strongly, heavily profitable to a business. And so that's why they can pay you so much, right? And so that's kind of the reality of full-time work. Now, in both these roles, earning six figures, in both these roles, I've been working remote, okay? So that is kind of the reality of full-time work. Now, in terms of actual salaries as well as my truth, first internship, $15 an hour, $32 an hour, $60 an hour, and then beyond that, it's just been six figures. Without getting into too specific of details, that's been what salaries have been like in software engineering. Now, let's talk about the skills that actually got me hired versus got me promoted. To get hired, there's really only a couple things that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to, one, get interviews at scale, and then two, be able to pass a technical interview. Okay, so getting interviews is literally, I don't want to say it's a game, but it can be very systemizable. If you track your stats, if you are making sure you're getting referrals to places, you're pretty much guaranteed interviews, after which it's just on you to pass a technical interview. And you learn very quickly what's expected of you, right? You're going to have some data structure, some algorithm knowledge, right? And the way to get better at that is LeetCode. That's why everybody talks about LeetCode. In most places, they're going to make you pass some kind of technical interview. Okay, not everybody does a live whiteboarding or live coding exercise with you or what have you. Some people will do like a take-home assignment and maybe you talk about it. So if you're not great under pressure or on the spot, there are other options. You don't necessarily have to be the best live LeetCoder or what have you, okay? Now, another point I'll call out. Once you have a big name on your resume, for example, I have this Amazon name on my resume, that will take you a long way, right? And so if you're somebody that's looking to get into this industry or level up, right, you only have to win once, right? You only have to win once. And once you kind of have that stature behind you, once you have that experience, that name behind you, that will carry you a long way. That will carry you a long way. Other companies will recognize it and trust the fact that, if he could pass Amazon interviews or if she could pass Amazon interviews, like they're probably pretty good or they're probably good enough to pass us as well. And that's going to give you a little more margin of error in these technical interviews and such. Okay. And probably lead to more interviews as well. Now, the only other thing that I'll call out that I've harped on relentlessly in other videos, as well as even earlier on in this video, is for leveling up, the most important thing for me is focusing on tying my work to business value. It's not solving the most difficult problems. It's not making the most technically beautiful solution, although other engineers will love you and respect you for that. But for actually leveling up, tying your engineering efforts directly to business value in terms of cutting costs, in terms of making the business more money. This is what matters. This is what's going to get the attention of your managers, of C-suite, of people ahead of you that are thinking about these business decisions. If you can be like, hey, look, I implemented XYZ process that saved the business $500K a year. That's why I should be promoted, is like I'm very profitable to you. That is a much stronger argument than like, oh, I improve state management of, whatever nerdy tech app you're working on, right? It's like the whole reason these engineers can get paid so much, you can get paid so much, is you are valuable to the business. Never forget that, and it will serve you very well, or at least it served me very well, all right? So to recap, this is what my progression looked like. There was high school, there was college, and then I got into some internships, after which it's been not coasting, but a steady progression in terms of real full-time engineering work, okay? So if you have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. I read them and I respond to just about every comment that's posted. And again, if you don't know me, my name is Jake. I appreciate you watching the video. Again, if you are trying to break into front-end development as quickly as possible, go to frontendfuture.com right now. There's a link down below in the description. Watch the video, get started. You can even book in a call with me and we can discuss how you can do this as quickly as possible. So again, thank you for watching and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.